Good evening, everyone. I know I'm coming on very late today with um, the attack on Iran. So let's see if I'm on. Today with okay, everything looks good. So let's begin 1776 days since Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room and his life was taken from him. And those responsible are 15 plus agencies, right? 15 plus agencies, and of course, those with the bloody hands. The prime suspects are Richard's platoon leader, Dallas Hart, his mother, convicted criminal Leilani Hart, and their family member, Fort Bliss, former Fort Bliss CID agent Tavita Nusa, who had his badge terminated in 2021. That's important. That's important to know that he had his badge terminated in 2021. So everything is coming out about Richard's vehicle. Um, the vehicle has a lot of anomalies that are not something you miss. Okay, it's not something you miss at all. It's obvious, right? It's obvious. And it's taken, look, we've done this for almost 5 years. And we absolutely knew that everything was stinky. We've been saying it for 5 years that this has been an orchestrated cover up, and it is absolutely attached to the Walmart mass shooting because what this criminal group, Bob Moore's group, Kathleen Gannon, I don't know who to name the criminal group, if it should be Kathleen Gannon's criminal group or Bob Moore's criminal group, maybe Woody Hunt's criminal group. Does that sound right? Maybe a Foster, maybe De La Vega, or I don't know if that's her. I I got to learn all these names of these billionaires, it's starting to all kind of come out. What group is this? But we know that they're up to no good. We know that they were willing to go to the extremes to cover up their criminal enterprise, their criminal network. And that includes criminal trafficking, what Richard was reporting on. And that's why he was a risk to them, because he was a whistleblower exposing their criminal enterprise. But not just that, you can have a whistleblower expose what you're doing, but if you are the judges, if you control the judges, if you have illegitimate DAs, if you control the DA's office, which El Paso is totally broken, they don't even have a legitimate DA. And you control the medical examiner, and you control the Veronica Escobars, the representatives, and you control the federal courthouse, and you control the MAG court, you control the El Paso ISD and the El Paso Police Department. Enough of them. When because when you have so much of it, then you have the those that have character, that are just trying to keep their job. You have them under your thumb. you have them absolutely under your thumb. And that's what has been going on in El Paso. And so if you have a whistleblower and you have everybody under your thumb, you can absolutely act with impunity and you can smile about it. And you don't even, if someone whistle blows, you can just like laugh in their face, and control it, especially if you control the El Paso field office, the FBI field office, you know, um, and then, others, because with that kind of money, you can buy a lot of bribes. You can buy a lot of politicians with billions of dollars. And we need to really do something about this because it really brings in so much criminality. And the problem with El Paso is it has our beautiful military installation called Fort Bliss. And Fort Bliss, of course, has been used and abused, and you can tell it's been used and abused. Um, and uh, and the contracts have, you know, uh, it's all of that needs to be looked into because the amount of money you put into it and then what you get, um, two different things, right? I bet you everything was over budget. I bet you everything, all the contracts went over budget. Um, but we have the Fort Bliss there, and of course, American taxpayers are very good to our military, and that makes them a target. That makes the military bases a target, especially for contracts, especially for military contracts, and then of course for all kinds of trafficking. And so, and when you have young men and women, when you have young men and women that are away from their home and they come on there, they need to be compromised in order to keep your thumb on them, right? They were compromising them. We know that. And then you have to exploit them, right? You have to exploit them. When they're getting their bonuses, and you know that they need a set of wheels. You know that they need vehicles. And this is what absolutely when they decided to target Richard as a whistleblower, because you see, he became a threat. They really had to pay attention to him because President Trump had won the election in 2016 and 2017. He meant business. He absolutely meant business. They were brutal with him. Especially, you can use General Flynn as an example of that, how they entrapped General Flynn. Um, so there's a lot going on at that time. 2017, 2018 is when Richard got there and he was deployed to Qatar. 2019 is when they started to target Richard. We know that in Qatar, we know that Richard started to express how bad everything was and that he didn't even want to make the military a career, which he had wanted to do. And so he said it was really bad. It was so bad. It was way worse than I had warned him. And, try to prepare him for how to handle situations, but he said it was just so bad. It was so bad. And we know that it had to do with children because of his multiple reports to Child Protective Services. We know that he was in communication with FBI Houston, which is the human trafficking field office. We know that he was in connection with Washington, D.C., of course. And of course, the IG were all over the barracks because of Halliday. And we know that he called 911 multiple times. And of course, the CID and the CID, because he wanted to be a CID agent, right? He wanted to be CID. So, it was very clear that because President Trump meant business and President Trump was commander in chief, and President Trump, as president, you are the the chief magistrate, the chief law enforcer, and he was absolutely investigating and he was absolutely enforcing. And so uh, Richard became a threat, and especially when Yvonne Rosales won as the district attorney for the 34th Judicial District, because that was an upset. They did not mean for that to happen. They meant for Montoya 2028 stamp, James 2028 stamp Montoya to be the DA, uh, and Yvonne Rosales won. She won. And so that was a real upset. And so and that was in July of 2020, and I think the retaliation escalated there to taking his life. Okay. Maybe they thought they could deal with the federal Trump. They really had Trump tied up in knots. Um, they thought maybe they could deal with him, but when Yvonne Rosales, that was just too much. That was just too much. And there was other things. Nothing stuck with Richard. They couldn't compromise with Richard. Nothing was sticking. Everything that they tried against him, it wasn't working. And so so it really escalated. And this is why it's so important for us to expose Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe, because he was the commander of Fort Bliss. Um, you can go Major General Clem Coward, Patrick Matlock, Major General Matlock. But when we got there, he's the one that absolutely decided to lie to us, continuously lie to us. He was the cover up. He sold his soul. He sold his soul. The other ones, they were evil, yes, of course, but he absolutely sold his soul with the Jag. The Jag was there. He didn't do anything without the Jag whispering in his ear. But he went along with it, knowing that Richard had been brutally murdered. I shouldn't even say it on live because it might be tagged. That they took his life from him. He knew that right at the very beginning. That's why that he was looking for partial remains for Richard in several places. He knew about the positive hit by the Boer Star. He knew about Nidal Baem and the remains being found by the FBI over in Juarez. Um, you know, he absolutely knew, and yet he carried on a charade and of deception for us and for the community. And he did that with 15 plus agencies. That's a lot of money, y'all. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of fraud, waste, and abuse. And he did it for a deception to deceive everybody. And the task force find Richard Halliday was a total deception. And of course, the CONUS Deaths one, you know, that really gets me so much because Richard was the first CONUS Deaths one soldier under the new Vanessa Guillen absent soldier flowchart. And, it's like, really? You're going to dishonor her even more? You mean everything that you did to Vanessa Guillen, now you want to dishonor her even more by carrying on this charade with Richard, um, and absolutely designating Richard the first Vanessa Guillen CONUS Deaths one absent soldier, and he wasn't. You knew that he wasn't. I mean, that's just playing games with Vanessa Guillen's memory and all the work that was done to get this new flow chart, right? To get this new flow chart. And they absolutely, um, you know, they just dishonored her again, yet again. Of course, our son too. Of course, our son too. Um, it's just unspeakable what Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe did, and to lie to us about Nidal Baem, saying he's just some guy, and we gave him the CCTV footage, we gave him the audio, the video testimony uh, of the cashier, and he's just lying to us when he is totally connected with this group, and they're totally connected to the cartel. They're connected to the Big T organization, a total national security threat, and he's lying to us about it. And knowing that our son had his life taken from him, and he's lying to us, you know, about who he is, and then of course lying to us about Richard's vehicle, right? About Richard's vehicle, the whole situation with that. I mean, you have the fuel distributor, Eswick, Eswick, fuel dis- Kyle Eswick, the exotic dancer, but in the military on Fort Bliss, was a football player, but in charge of fuel. He was the fuel. What do you call it? A 92F or something like that. Um, uh, fuel distributor. And that's connected to this case too now. You know, an exotic dancer. I wonder where he was dancing. Wouldn't that be something if he was dancing where Leilani Hart was getting her mail, where Belen Rocha was dancing? I mean, wouldn't that be something? And that wouldn't be a surprise to us because we know that they're all connected. We know that they were this big criminal group, Bob Moore's criminal group. We know that Bob Moore was absolutely engaged in this case to target Richard, to silence Richard because he was a witness. They could not let this witness speak, blow his whistle. He blew his whistle. They could not let him speak in the investigations that President Trump was conducting. And, he was already speaking with them, but, they could not let Richard be a witness. And so, wow, the, the level of violations that Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe engaged in is just astounding, because I haven't even mentioned Judge Roger Rodriguez and him keeping that information from us. He absolutely received on his desk a whistleblower report from Judge Roger Rodriguez identifying Leilani Hart and former CID uh, agent Tavita Nusa, who had his badge terminated, as the prime suspects in the murder case of Richard and in tampering with Richard's case. So um, can you imagine Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe not telling us about that, not telling us about Nidal Baem, not telling us about Richard's vehicle, not telling us about all where his remains were, um, you know, that he was a whistleblower, right? They wanted to keep that really quiet. And he absolutely, it's confirmed that he deserved absolutely whistleblower protection. That's why they were watching him. And, they just gave us this false story that, you know, uh, something that they had to discredit him with, and it never stuck. But what they were really doing is, under the law, they have to protect a whistleblower, but they sabotaged that absolutely. And so he was forcibly removed and he lost his life. And there was a cover up ensuing. And so, the evidence is there. I'm not making things up. I'm not pulling things out of the air. The evidence is there about what happened, and these the car details, um, the witness testimonies of so many are all very, very important to this case with our own investigation, which is over 20,000 hours, over 20,000 hours. And it's probably more than that. I'm going to calculate it. And, you know, uh, I can tell you that speaking to investigators, they've seen nothing like this. There's never been any kind of case like this that 15 plus agencies, have failed in big, big ways. It's so big, and that they have committed violations. And none of them are as big as the Arnold Benedict, or the traitor Sean Bernabe. I mean, he's a total traitor. And that's why it's important for us to expose him. Because if he's a traitor um, like this, what's going to happen? What's going to happen, Um, he is absolutely up to no good. And with these national security breaches and the targeting of our soldiers and the targeting of a whistleblower soldier is, devastating to our military. And we're going to have the military birthday soon, and we're going to have Richard's birthday soon. And, you know, we have to be ready. We have to be fighting ready, and not be compromised left and right with nonsense. We need to have that discipline that the military has always strive to have, and we know that the FBI was up to no good too, right? Leaking and putting in danger Judge Roger Rodriguez by the leak. So, and now we have a JAG targeting President Trump, and we have information that out of El Paso, absolutely that they targeted President Trump. And, so this is a very political city, and not tolerable for Trump supporters, let me tell you. And so now the truth is coming out. And that is really helping in securing a lot of evidence and understanding a lot of evidence, um, and all the connections, the international connections with this case. So it is really with this Raquel Primo, with the Shelton, right? What is the FBI, retired FBI agent Shelton wanted to go on a broadcast today with Michael Cordero, who has no relation at all to Julio Cordero. Why she picked him, I don't know, but we had to absolutely step in, um, behind the scenes, because they needed to be very, very careful not to violate the law, because the information for the Walmart mass shooting has not been given to the public yet. And there's been so much tampering in that case, so much tampering, we couldn't allow for any more tampering to go on. So we absolutely stepped in, um, into that podcast. So yeah, that's very important, because the false narratives, the lies, they want to spin this, and even Congresswoman Crockett even today, and I didn't post it up. Um, but a lot of you are going to see it anyway because she mentioned El Paso and a false narrative about El Paso. So the false narrative is still being promulgated, uh, being pushed out there to be a right narrative, and it's not. And it's absolutely not. So we thank everyone that left a comment to set her right and left a comment. Um, you know, on our side, on the FBI, retired FBI Shelton site. Um, and any, I even was sent um, comments that were posted up on Veronica Escobar's. They were brutal too. So we really appreciate it. That is what is going to really um, push this to where we get full accountability and know where they put Richard's remains. I really believe that that they know what happened to Richard's remains. And so, because they're not going to, with them being enforcement officers, they're not going to leave that to chance. Because look at what they had to do to try to cover up Vanessa Guillen, and still the animals found her. So they weren't going to leave things by chance with Richard. No, they didn't want another Vanessa Guillen situation at all. And so we see that they did some tricks that are not so good. Um, nope, nope. It's really lies, and yeah, the lies upon lies upon lies, and this is why it's so important to expose Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe. He has to be brought back with court-martial. He has to be court-martialed, absolutely, because what they did and covered up, and the lies that they told us. I mean, it just blatant lies what they told us, um, and ordering us to be our own investigators, is in the end, he's going to have to tell us what happened. So thank you so much. So much is happening behind the scenes. My head is spinning a little bit tonight because of all of the things happening behind the scenes. So say a prayer for our nation, um, and for everything that's happening, for the safety of everybody. Say a prayer, and I will be back tomorrow. And please share. Thank you, Danielle, for coming on. Thank you, Martha, for coming on. You wouldn't believe what they did to Richard's car. The whole car, the whole thing. I don't even know if it's Richard's car. The whole thing is so tampered with, and that's coming out really soon. I'll explain it better. But we just have to get all of the files in first. And it is just know that, uh, you know, uh, an exotic dancer. Yep, an exotic dancer that's in the military on Fort Bliss in charge of fuel distribution. Yeah, and a football player on top of that. So, yeah, we'll explain it to you even more so, because it gets pretty entangled there with with the criminal group. Absolutely. So thank you so much. God bless you. Please share. And everything is looking really good because of your help, because of you staying for almost 5 years, constantly and sharing the hashtag. And even though they're, the imposters are kind of trying to take the hashtag, this is an, a narrative war, right? A narrative war. So we really appreciate you getting all the information out there. Like for the Walmart mass shooting, like the Mayelas, like the audios we have, all of that, that needs to be front and center with Richard's case. Um, Absolutely. So thank you for sharing that. And I will be back